The great throne room of the Zephyrian Empire buzzed with whispers and nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of star systems had gathered to witness what everyone believed would be a historic surrender. The massive chamber could hold 10,000 beings, but today only the most important diplomats filled the polished stone benches. Emperor Vex's Thul sat on his crystal throne, his blue-scaled face showing satisfaction. 3 days ago, he had declared war on the human colonies. Today, he expected Earth's government to beg for mercy. The Zephyrians were proud of their military strength. For 200 years, they had conquered system after system. Their technology was advanced, their ships were fast, and their weapons could destroy entire planets. No species had ever successfully resisted them for more than a few weeks. Admiral Krisha stood beside the throne, her uniform decorated with medals from dozens of victories. Behind her, a massive display showed the Zephyrian war fleet. Over 10,000 ships waited in space, ready to crush any resistance. It was the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. The human representative approaches, Your Majesty, announced a palace guard. The great doors opened with a deep rumble. Every eye in the room turned to see Earth's response to their overwhelming show of force. Would they send a general? A president? Perhaps an entire delegation of their most important leaders? Instead, a single man walked through the doors. He wore a simple black suit and carried only a small briefcase. His hair was black with gray at the sides, and he walked with the calm pace of someone taking a morning stroll. The man looked completely ordinary. Whispers filled the throne room. The Corvellian ambassador leaned toward his aide. Is this some kind of joke? They sent one human? Well, Ambassador Jinwoo Park reached the center of the room and bowed politely toward the emperor. His movement was respectful, but not fearful. He straightened and waited quietly for permission to speak. Emperor Vexithul studied the human with growing annoyance. Where was the terror? The desperate pleading? This creature looked like he was attending a business meeting. You are Earth's representative? The emperor asked, his voice echoing through the chamber. Yes, Your Majesty. Ambassador Jinwoo Park, at your service. The human's voice was calm and professional. Do you understand why you have been summoned? I believe so, sir. You declared war on our outer colonies 3 days ago. You requested that Earth send a representative to discuss terms. Jinwoo paused and looked around the room. Might I ask if there's somewhere comfortable to sit? This may take some time. The emperor's eyes widened. A servant quickly brought a simple chair, placing it in front of the throne. Jinwoo thanked the servant politely and sat down. He opened his briefcase and pulled out what appeared to be a folded newspaper. The throne room fell silent. Every being present stared as the human ambassador unfolded his newspaper and began reading. He appeared to be looking at something called the sports section. What are you doing? Admiral Krisha demanded. Jinwoo looked up with mild interest. Reading about the baseball season. Earth's team is doing quite well this year. I apologize if this seems rude, but the game reports just came in this morning. Emperor Vexthul felt his anger rising. You dare to read entertainment while facing the might of our empire? Oh no, Your Majesty. This isn't entertainment. Baseball is very serious business on Earth. Jinwoo turned a page casually. But please, continue with your presentation. I'm listening. The Emperor gestured angrily at Admiral Krisha. The Admiral activated the holographic displays, filling the air above the throne with images of the Zephyrian fleet. Massive battleships rotated slowly in the light, their weapon systems clearly visible. Behold the strength that will destroy your colonies, Admiral Krisha announced. Our ships carry plasma cannons that can melt mountains. Our shields can deflect any weapon. Our speed allows us to strike anywhere, without warning. Jinwoo glanced at the displays and nodded thoughtfully. Very impressive ships. Your engineers do excellent work. He returned to his newspaper. I notice your hull design prioritizes firepower over maneuverability. Interesting choice. Choice? The admiral's voice rose. Those ships represent perfection in military design. I'm sure they do. Within their intended parameters, Jin Woo found an article about farming and began reading with apparent interest. Tell me, do your tactical doctrines account for asymmetric engagement scenarios? The Zephyrian officers exchanged confused looks. They didn't understand half the words the human had used, but his tone suggested he was analyzing their military capabilities like a scientist studying insects. Emperor Vex's Thule slammed his fist on his throne. Jin Woo looked up again, his expression genuinely apologetic. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to appear disrespectful. I'm paying attention to everything you're saying. It's just that I have a long flight home, and I like to catch up on the news. You think you're going home? Admiral Krisha stepped forward. You have 72 hours to arrange your species' surrender. If Earth does not submit, we will destroy every human colony in this sector. I understand your position. Jin Woo folded his newspaper neatly and placed it on his lap. Might I ask a small favor? Do you happen to have coffee available? The kind on your ships was quite good during my flight here. The Emperor stared at this strange human, who discussed war terms while requesting refreshments. Either the creature was insane, or Earth's government had sent someone completely unprepared for the situation. A servant brought coffee in a fine crystal cup. Jin Woo thanked him warmly and took a careful sip. Excellent quality. Do you grow this locally? The deadline is 72 hours, Admiral Krisha repeated firmly. Contact your government. Tell them we require complete surrender of all human territories, full access to your resources, and tribute payments for the next century. Jin Woo nodded and pulled a small device from his pocket. He spoke into it briefly. This is Ambassador Park. Please inform the Council that the Zephyrians have made their demands clear. Standard protocol applies. He put the device away and returned to his newspaper. That's it? The Emperor asked. No negotiation? No desperate offers? I'm not authorized to negotiate surrender terms, Your Majesty. That decision belongs to people much more important than me. Jin Woo turned to the crossword puzzle. I'm just here to observe and report what I learn. The Emperor dismissed the assembly, leaving Jin Woo sitting quietly in the great throne room, working on his crossword puzzle, while the most powerful military force in the galaxy prepared to demonstrate humanity's helplessness. Outside, 10,000 warships moved toward human space, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Jin Woo found a particularly challenging clue and smiled slightly as he began to work it out. 2 days had passed since the Emperor's deadline was announced. In the Zephyrian Command Center, Admiral Krisha watched her fleet approach the first human colony. The massive wall displays showed tactical information streaming from hundreds of ships advancing through space. Contact with human border settlements in 6 hours, reported Captain Yeldan from his position at the communications station. Admiral Krisha nodded. Intelligence reports indicated these outer colonies had minimal defenses. A few orbital platforms, some patrol ships, maybe 1,000 human defenders total. Her advance force alone contained 50 battleships and twice as many support vessels. The humans would be overwhelmed before they could even send a distress signal. Any word from the human ambassador? She asked. He remains in the guest quarters, Admiral. Palace staff report he's still reading his newspaper. Captain Yeldan paused. He also asked the kitchen to prepare something called pancakes for breakfast. The Admiral shook her head. Either humans were completely insane, or their government had abandoned this ambassador to save themselves. Both possibilities confirmed Zephyrian superiority. In his comfortable room within the palace, Jin Woo Park sat by the window with his newspaper spread across a small table. He had moved on to the crossword puzzle and was considering a 7-letter word meaning unavoidable outcome. A guard stood near the door, watching him with growing confusion. Is there something I can help you find? The guard asked. The human had been staring at the same puzzle for 10 minutes. I'm trying to remember if this word is spelled with 1 in or 2, Jinwoo replied. It's always the simple ones that give me trouble. The guard looked at the human letters scattered across the page. They made no sense to him, but the ambassador seemed completely absorbed in the task. How could someone focus on word games while his species faced extinction? Admiral Krisha's voice crackled through the communication system. First contact. With human vessels detected. Analysis. Beginning now. The command center displays shifted to show real-time data from the fleet's sensors. 3 human ships had appeared on the edge of the system, moving to intercept the Zephyrian advance force. The vessels looked primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. Enemy ship configuration unknown, reported the sensor officer. Hull appears to be basic metal alloy. Propulsion system uses chemical rockets. Weapon signatures are unclear. Captain Yeldan studied the readings with surprise. Chemical rockets? Are these humans still using ancient technology? Perhaps they haven't developed proper spaceflight yet, suggested another officer. Our intelligence may have overestimated their capabilities. Admiral Krisha felt a moment of disappointment. She had hoped for at least a challenging fight. These primitive ships would be destroyed in seconds. All vessels, prepare for engagement. Standard formation. Make it quick. The human ships moved into position without any apparent coordination. They didn't even seem to be communicating with each other. The Zephyrian captains armed their plasma cannons and adjusted their shields to maximum strength. Firing solution locked. All ships ready, reported the weapons officer. Engage targets, Admiral Krisha commanded. The battle began exactly as expected. Zephyrian plasma cannons fired brilliant beams of energy across space. The first human ship took a direct hit and exploded immediately. Then, something went wrong. The explosion was massive, far larger than any ship that size should produce. The blast wave spread outward with incredible force, washing over 3 nearby Zephyrian vessels and overloading their shield systems. Electrical surges shut down their weapons and engines. What just happened? Admiral Krisha demanded. Before anyone could answer, the second human ship exploded. This time, the Zephyrian fleet was ready for a large blast, but they weren't prepared for the electromagnetic pulse that followed. Communication systems across the entire fleet began malfunctioning. Admiral, the third human ship is moving directly toward our flagship, reported a panicked voice through the static. All weapons, concentrate fire. Energy beams struck the approaching vessel from dozens of different directions. The ship's hull glowed white-hot under the assault, but it continued forward. Just as it reached the optimal position, it exploded with the force of a small star. The flagship's shields collapsed completely. Half the command systems went offline. Emergency power kicked in, as the crew struggled to restore basic functions. Around them, other ships reported similar damage from the expanding wave of destruction. Admiral Krisha realized with growing horror that these hadn't been desperate attacks. The humans had deliberately sacrificed their ships, but each explosion was precisely timed and positioned to cause maximum damage to the fleet. The seemingly primitive vessels were actually guided weapons. Scan for survivors from the human ships, she ordered. Admiral, we're detecting multiple escape pods that launched before the explosions. The human crews evacuated safely before their ships were destroyed. They planned this, Captain Yeldan said quietly. Those ships were remote-controlled weapons. The tactical implications hit Admiral Krisha like a physical blow. Humans had turned their apparent technological disadvantage into a strategic advantage. Zephyrian shields and weapons were designed to fight other energy-based systems. They weren't prepared for opponents who used their own ships as massive kinetic weapons. Casualties report, she commanded. 30 vessels damaged, 7 completely disabled. Estimated repair time is 48 hours minimum. The humans destroyed 3 small ships and crippled a significant portion of our advance force. In the palace, Jinwoo looked up from his crossword puzzle as a palace aide entered his room. The aide's expression was troubled. Ambassador, Admiral Krisha requests your presence in the command center. Jinwoo folded his newspaper carefully and stood. Of course. I hope everything is proceeding smoothly with your military exercise. The aide led him through corridors filled with hurrying officers and worried faces. The command center buzzed with activity as technicians worked frantically to restore damaged systems and analyze what had happened. Admiral Krisha turned as Jinwoo entered. Her face showed a mixture of anger and confusion. What kind of madness drives your people to such extremes? Jinwoo looked genuinely puzzled. Your ships, your crews, they destroyed themselves just to damage our fleet. Oh, I think there may be some confusion, Jinwoo replied calmly. Our crews weren't on those ships when they exploded. We evacuated them hours before the engagement. Then who was controlling the vessels? Our tactical computers. We learned long ago to separate the value of equipment from the value of human life. Jinwoo paused. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't limit yourself to conventional thinking. Admiral Krisha stared at this calm human, who discussed the destruction of starships like he was explaining a simple math problem. Those were military vessels. They represented significant resources. Yes, they were expensive to build, but we built them specifically for this purpose. Jinwoo smiled politely. We've been planning for this conversation for quite some time. The Admiral felt a chill run down her spine. Planning for what conversation? The one where someone with superior firepower assumes that means they have superior strategy. Jinwoo pulled out his newspaper again. If you'll excuse me, I still haven't finished this crossword puzzle. Do you happen to know a 7-letter word for inevitable outcome? Admiral Krisha watched him return to his seat and unfold his newspaper. Around her, officers worked desperately to understand how 3 primitive ships had crippled their mighty fleet. Outside in space, more human vessels were approaching, and now no one was certain what to expect. Emperor Vex Thule paced angrily through his private chambers while Admiral Krisha stood at attention. The report of the fleet's encounter with human ships had shaken his confidence. But his pride refused to accept that primitive beings could challenge Zephyrian supremacy. 30 ships damaged by 3 human vessels, he growled. How is this possible? The humans use unconventional tactics, Your Majesty. They turned their ships into weapons we weren't prepared for. Tricks and desperation. The Emperor slammed his fist on his desk. Deploy the full fleet. Use maximum firepower. Show these creatures what happens when they resist the Empire. Admiral Krisha hesitated. Your Majesty, perhaps we should study their methods before... No. I will not be made to look weak by a species that still uses metal ships. The Emperor's voice rose with each word. Crush them completely. Use whatever force is necessary. In the palace library, Jinwoo Park had found a comfortable chair near a window overlooking the capital city. He no longer carried his newspaper, having finished it completely including all the crossword puzzles. Instead, he read from a thick book about ancient military history. The title page mentioned something called The Art of War. A young palace servant approached nervously. Ambassador, what are you reading? Jinwoo looked up with a friendly smile. Military strategy. It's fascinating how the same principles apply across different cultures and time periods. Are you preparing for the battle? Oh, the battle started days ago. I'm just studying how similar situations were handled in the past. Jinwoo turned a page. This book was written over 2,000 years ago on Earth, but the author understood something your leaders haven't grasped yet. The servant looked confused but curious. What is that? He wrote that the greatest victory is winning without fighting. But if you must fight, win before the battle begins. Jinwoo made a note in the margin. Your emperor is still trying to win through force alone. 3 human colonies awaited the approaching Zephyrian armada. Admiral Krisha commanded over 8,000 ships this time, holding nothing back. They would attack all 3 systems simultaneously, using overwhelming firepower to prevent any more tactical surprises. Long-range sensors show the human colonies ahead, reported Captain Yeldan. All three systems appear empty. Admiral Krisha frowned. What do you mean, empty? No ships in orbit. No energy signatures from defensive platforms. The planets themselves show minimal activity. It's as if the humans abandoned them. Through the fleet communications, similar reports came from the other attack groups. Every human colony appeared deserted. Orbital stations were dark, planetary defenses were silent, and there were no vessels anywhere in the systems. It's obviously a trap, Admiral Krisha muttered. They're hiding, waiting for us to come closer. Should we withdraw and reconsider our approach? No. We've committed too much to retreat again. All ships, advance to standard engagement range. Maximum shields, weapons ready. Stay alert for anything unusual. The Zephyrian fleet moved into the three systems like a vast metal storm. Thousands of ships spread across space, their sensors scanning for hidden threats. They found nothing. The human colonies truly seemed abandoned. Begin orbital bombardment, Admiral Krisha ordered. If they want to hide, we'll force them out. Energy beams struck the first planet's surface, expecting to hit military installations or underground bunkers. Instead, the ground exploded upward. Massive chunks of metal and rock launched into space at incredible speeds, moving like guided missiles toward the Zephyrian ships. Evasive action! Captain Yeldan shouted. But it was too late. The projectiles weren't random debris. They were solid metal rods fired from hidden railguns built deep beneath the planet's surface. The humans had turned the entire world into a fortress, using the planet's rotation and gravity to aim their weapons with perfect accuracy. Zephyrian shields were designed to deflect energy beams and plasma bolts. They offered little protection against solid objects moving at nearly the speed of light. The kinetic energy was devastating. Ships that had survived hundreds of space battles were torn apart by chunks of metal fired from planetary cannons. But the attack was coordinated across all three systems. As the Zephyrian fleets tried to retreat to safe distance, they discovered that space itself had become a weapon. Objects that sensors had dismissed as natural debris were actually positioned with careful precision. Small satellites, pieces of ice, even microscopic particles had been placed in calculated orbits around each planet. As the Zephyrian ships tried to maneuver, they found themselves flying through fields of obstacles that their navigation systems couldn't track effectively. Admiral, we have collision alerts across the entire fleet. Captain Yeldan's voice was strained with panic. Something is interfering with our navigation computers. Admiral Krisha watched in growing horror as her magnificent fleet became trapped in a maze of orbital mechanics that the humans had spent years preparing. Ships designed for open space warfare couldn't maneuver effectively when every movement risked collision with carefully placed objects. How long did they have to prepare this? She whispered. The colonies have been established for over 50 years, an aide reported. The humans could have been planning these defenses for decades. The realization struck Admiral Krisha like physical pain. The humans hadn't been caught off guard by the Zephyrian attack. They had been waiting for it. Every colony was a trap. Every defensive position was calculated to turn Zephyrian advantages into disadvantages. Emergency communications brought reports from the other attack groups. All three fleets were trapped in similar situations, unable to advance or retreat effectively, while human weapons fired from positions they couldn't target. In the palace, Emperor Vex Thul stormed into the library where Jin Wu continued reading peacefully. What is happening to my fleet? Jin Wu looked up from his book. They're learning the same lesson that armies throughout history have learned when they underestimate their opponents. This is impossible. We have superior technology, superior numbers. You do have impressive ships, Jinwu agreed calmly. But you made the same mistake that every powerful empire makes. You assumed that having better weapons means you understand warfare better. The Emperor's eyes bulged with rage. Our tactics have conquered dozens of systems, against opponents who tried to fight you on your terms, using your preferred methods. Jinwoo closed his book and stood. We studied your previous campaigns very carefully. You win through technological superiority in conventional space battles. So we made sure never to fight conventional space battles. When will this madness end? Jinwoo smiled, politely. When you're ready to discuss a different kind of relationship between our peoples. Or when you decide to commit even more ships to attacks that can't succeed. He paused, thoughtfully. Though I should mention that we're very good at adapting our methods. Each time you change your tactics, we have new responses ready. Emperor Vex Thule stared at this calm human who discussed military disasters like weather reports. What happens when we adapt to your tactics? Emperor. Then we change them again. Jinwoo picked up a new book from the table. I'm currently reading about something called guerrilla warfare. It's a very interesting subject. Humans have been developing these methods for thousands of years. The Emperor looked at the book's cover, which showed pictures of Earth's mountains and forests. He couldn't read the human writing. But something about Jinwoo's quiet confidence made his blood turn cold. You're telling me this is just the beginning? Your Majesty, we haven't even started yet. The emergency council meeting in the Zephyrian Imperial Palace brought together the Empire's most senior military commanders. The massive holographic display showed the current status of their fleet, and the numbers were devastating. Over 2,000 ships were damaged or destroyed, trapped in human defensive systems they couldn't understand or counter. Emperor Vex Thule sat on his throne, his proud bearing replaced by barely contained fury and growing uncertainty. Around him, generals and admirals argued loudly about tactics and strategy, but their confident voices couldn't hide their confusion. We need to withdraw and regroup, urged General Mordak. The humans have turned those systems into death traps. Withdrawal is defeat. Admiral Krisha slammed her fist on the table. We still have 6,000 ships. We can bombard those planets from maximum range. Destroy them completely from a safe distance. And if they have more surprises waiting, then we'll face them with overwhelming firepower. No tricks can survive total planetary destruction. Emperor Vexthul raised his hand for silence. We will not retreat. The entire galaxy is watching. If a primitive species can make us run away, every world in the Empire will question our strength. In his guest quarters, Jinwoo Park had moved on to reading detailed historical accounts of defensive warfare throughout human history. The book's pages were filled with diagrams and battle plans, showing how smaller forces had defeated larger ones through careful preparation and unconventional thinking. A palace aide knocked on his door. Ambassador, the Emperor requests your presence in the command center. Of course, Jinwoo replied, closing his book. I hope the Admiral's tactical analysis is proceeding well. The command center buzzed with desperate activity as officers tried to develop new strategies for attacking the human colonies. When Jinwoo entered, every conversation stopped. Admiral Krisha approached him with a mixture of respect and suspicion in her eyes. Your people have impressed us with their resourcefulness, she said carefully. But we have a new plan. We will destroy your colonies from maximum weapons range. No defensive systems can protect against complete planetary annihilation. Jinwoo nodded thoughtfully. That's certainly one approach. May I ask what distance you consider safe? The Admiral hesitated. Something about the human's calm interest made her uncomfortable. Our longest-range weapons can destroy planets from 50,000 kilometers. Interesting. Our intelligence suggested your maximum effective range was closer to 30,000 kilometers, but weapons technology does advance quickly. Jinwoo paused. Of course, you'll need to maintain position for several hours to complete total surface destruction. I hope your fleet is prepared for extended operations. Admiral Krisha felt a chill run through her. Prepared for what? Oh, I wouldn't want to spoil the surprise. But I will say this. Humans have always understood that the best defense is making your enemy's advantages work against them. The third assault on human space began 6 hours later. The Zephyrian fleet approached the colonies at maximum range. Spread across a vast area, to prevent another coordinated trap. They would destroy the planets systematically, turning them to molten rock from a distance no human weapon could reach. Admiral Krisha commanded the operation from her flagship, watching as the massive formation moved into position. This time, there would be no mistakes. The humans could prepare all the tricks they wanted. Nothing could survive what was coming. "All ships report ready for bombardment," Captain Yeldan announced. "Begin planetary destruction sequence," Admiral Krisha ordered. The attack began with the focused power of a star. Thousands of energy beams struck the first human colony simultaneously, expecting to crack the planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. The surface exploded in brilliant flashes of light as rock and metal vaporized under the assault. But instead of destruction, the Zephyrians witnessed transformation. As the planet's surface burned away, it revealed something impossible underneath. The entire world was mechanical. What they had thought was a natural planet was actually a massive artificial construction. "Admiral, the planet is changing," Captain Yeldan reported in a stunned voice. The burning surface peeled away like skin, revealing layer after layer of metal and machinery underneath. As the Zephyrian bombardment continued, huge sections of the artificial world opened like flower petals. From inside came objects that defied everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about space warfare. Entire space stations launched from the planet's interior. Manufacturing facilities the size of cities emerged from hidden chambers. Most shocking of all, fully armed warships began emerging from underground hangars, hundreds of them. As if the planet itself was giving birth to a fleet. "This is impossible," Admiral Krisha whispered. "How long would it take to build something like this?" "Decades," Captain Yeldan replied. "Maybe a century. The engineering required." He couldn't finish the sentence. Similar reports flooded in from the other target systems. All three human colonies were revealing themselves to be massive artificial constructions, each one containing industrial capacity that rivaled entire Zephyrian sectors. But more terrifying than the scale was the implication. The humans had been preparing for this exact scenario for generations. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the human ambassador," the communications officer announced. Jinwoo's calm voice filled the command center. "Admiral Krisha, I wanted to thank you for providing such excellent field testing for our defensive systems. The data you've gathered will help us improve our designs considerably." "Field testing?" Admiral Krisha's voice rose. "You're telling me this was an experiment?" "Oh yes. We needed to verify that our assumptions about Zephyrian tactical doctrine were correct. Your previous attacks gave us excellent information about your weapons capabilities and strategic thinking. This bombardment confirmed our calculations about your maximum effective range and targeting procedures." The Admiral felt her world shifting beneath her feet. "You wanted us to attack?" "We wanted you to attack in predictable ways, using predictable methods, at predictable ranges. Every engagement has provided us with detailed intelligence about your capabilities, while allowing us to test our own systems under real combat conditions." As Jinwoo spoke, the tactical displays showed new contacts appearing throughout the three systems. But these weren't emerging from planets. They were arriving from deep space. Human ships by the thousands, appearing from directions the Zephyrians had never monitored. "Where did they come from?" Captain Yeldan demanded. "Those are our real ships," Jinwoo explained patiently. "The colonies you've been attacking were never our main settlements. They were observation posts designed to study potential threats and gather intelligence. The actual human fleet has been watching your operations from a safe distance." Admiral Krisha stared at the displays as human vessels surrounded her scattered fleet from multiple directions. The ships were nothing like the primitive craft from the first encounters. They were massive, heavily armed, and demonstrated technology that exceeded Zephyrian capabilities. "How many ships do you have?" she asked quietly. "Enough," Jinwoo replied. "But that's not really the important question. Is it?" "What is the important question?" Whether you're ready to discuss a different relationship between our species, one based on mutual respect, rather than conquest. Emperor Vex's Thul's voice cut through the communication channel. What does Earth want? To coexist peacefully with our neighbors. To trade, rather than fight. To explore the galaxy together, instead of competing for dominance. Jinwu paused. We never wanted this war, Your Majesty, but we've been preparing for it since the day we first learned about galactic politics. How long have you been planning this? Since our first contact with galactic civilization, over a century ago. We spent that time learning about every major power, studying their strengths and weaknesses, preparing for the day when someone would decide that humans were too weak to deserve independence. Admiral Krisha realized with growing horror that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive colonists struggling to survive in space. They were a sophisticated civilization that had spent generations preparing to face exactly this scenario. You've been deceiving us from the beginning, she said. We've been protecting ourselves, Jinwu corrected gently. There's a difference between deception and appearing less threatening than you actually are. We learned that lesson from our own history. It's better to be underestimated by your enemies than feared by your friends. In the palace, Emperor Vex Thul stared at the strategic displays, showing his mighty fleet surrounded and outmaneuvered by opponents who had been planning this confrontation for longer than he had been alive. For the first time in his reign, he began to understand that strength wasn't always about having the biggest weapons. 1 week after the failed assault on human space, Emperor Vex Thul sat alone in his private study. The mighty Zephyrian fleet remained surrounded by human vessels, not destroyed, but clearly defeated. No shots had been fired for 3 days. But the message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere in Zephyrian space, whenever they chose. The Emperor's advisors had spent sleepless nights analyzing intelligence reports that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Human agents had been operating throughout the Empire for decades, possibly centuries. Every military secret, every technological advancement, every strategic plan had been quietly observed and studied. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Ambassador Park requests a private meeting, Your Majesty. Emperor Vex Thul straightened his robes and tried to summon his former dignity. Send him in. Jinwu entered carrying a simple leather folder instead of his usual books. He bowed respectfully before taking the seat across from the Emperor. Gone was the casual newspaper reader from the first day. This was clearly a professional diplomat conducting serious business. Thank you for agreeing to meet privately, Your Majesty. I believe we have much to discuss. You have made your point quite effectively, Ambassador. What does humanity want from the Zephyrian Empire? Jinwu opened his folder and removed several documents. Before we discuss terms, I think you should understand the full scope of the situation. He placed a star chart on the Emperor's desk. Red markers indicated Zephyrian territories, but blue dots covered the map. Hundreds of them, scattered throughout the galaxy. These represent species that have requested human assistance in defending themselves from aggressive expansion. Over the past century, we've been quietly sharing defensive technologies and strategic planning with civilizations that couldn't protect themselves alone. Emperor Vex Thul studied the chart with growing amazement. All of these worlds are allied with humanity? Not allied exactly. We don't ask for political control or military bases. We simply provide the tools and knowledge necessary for effective self-defense. Jinwu pointed to several systems near the Zephyrian border. Your next planned conquests would have encountered similar surprises. You've been manipulating our expansion for decades. We've been guiding it toward diplomatic solutions rather than military ones. When your scouts reported that certain systems had unexpectedly strong defenses, they were correct. We made sure those defenses were ready. The Emperor leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the implications. Why reveal this now? Because the old system isn't working anymore. Pretending to be weak while secretly preparing for war is exhausting and inefficient. We'd prefer honest relationships based on mutual benefit. Jinwoo placed another document on the desk. This is our proposal for a new galactic order. Military expansion would be replaced by economic and cultural competition. Disputes would be settled through negotiation rather than force. Resources would be shared rather than hoarded. 2. And if the Zephyrian Empire refuses? Then you'll face defensive alliances everywhere you try to expand. Every world you approach will be prepared for exactly the tactics you prefer to use. Your military superiority becomes meaningless when your opponents know all your strategies and have spent years preparing counters to them. Emperor Vex Thul read through the proposal with growing surprise. Rather than demanding tribute or territory, humanity offered technological exchanges, trade agreements, and cultural partnerships. The terms were generous, almost suspiciously so. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this advantage to conquer us? Jinwoo smiled and reached into his folder again. He pulled out a familiar object. Yesterday's newspaper from Earth. The Emperor could read enough human writing now to understand some of the headlines. Our latest cultural exchange programs have been very successful, Jinwoo explained, pointing to various articles. We're currently hosting over 50,000 alien students in Earth's universities. Our joint scientific research projects have led to breakthroughs that benefit everyone involved. Our space exploration program includes crews from dozens of different worlds. You could be preparing invasion forces. Your Majesty, if we wanted to conquer the Zephyrian Empire, we would have done it already. Our ships are currently positioned throughout your space. Your defenses are mapped and analyzed. Your command structure is thoroughly understood. Jinwoo leaned forward slightly. But conquest has never been our goal. Then what is your goal? Security through cooperation instead of domination. We learned from our own history that the strongest civilizations are those with the most allies, not the most weapons. Emperor Vex Thul set down the newspaper and studied the human ambassador carefully. You're asking me to trust that humanity will remain peaceful. I'm asking you to help us build a system where remaining peaceful is the most profitable option for everyone. Jinwoo gestured toward the star chart. Look at those blue dots again, Your Majesty. Every one represents a world that chose cooperation over conquest. Their economies are thriving, their people are prosperous, and their defenses are strong enough to deter any aggressor. Including us. Including you. But it doesn't have to be that way. The Zephyrian Empire has impressive technological capabilities and vast cultural achievements. We'd prefer to trade with you, learn from you, and explore the galaxy together. The door opened and Admiral Krisha entered. Her expression tense but respectful. Your Majesty, we've completed our analysis of human capabilities. She placed a datapad on the desk. The situation is comprehensive. Emperor Vex Thul read the report with growing amazement. Human agents hadn't just observed Zephyrian operations. They had been integrated into every level of the Empire's government and military. Some had been in place for generations, working as engineers, scientists, advisors, and technicians. How many of our people are actually humans in disguise? He asked. None, Your Majesty, Jinwoo replied. We don't use biological disguises. All of our intelligence comes from willing allies, Zephyrians who believed their empire would be stronger as part of a galactic community rather than as a conquering force. Traitors. Citizens who want their children to inherit a peaceful galaxy instead of an endless cycle of conquest and rebellion. Jinwoo's voice remained calm, but carried new steel. Your own people provided most of our information because they were tired of fighting wars they didn't believe in. Admiral Krisha confirmed the devastating truth. Sir, our internal security analysis suggests that popular support for military expansion has been declining for decades. Many of our citizens prefer the prospect of peaceful trade to continued warfare. Emperor Vex Thul felt the foundations of his worldview cracking. You're telling me that my own people want to surrender our proud warrior traditions? They want to evolve beyond them, Jinwoo corrected. Warrior traditions are valuable, but they serve their purpose best when directed toward protection rather than aggression. What happens to the Zephyrian Empire under your proposal? It becomes the Zephyrian Republic, a founding member of the new Galactic Council. Your military expertise would be invaluable for peacekeeping operations. Your technological capabilities would drive joint research projects. Your cultural achievements would be shared and celebrated throughout known space. Jin Wu stood and bowed formally. The choice is yours, Your Majesty. You can continue trying to expand through force, knowing that every future conflict will be fought against opponents who know your capabilities better than you know theirs. Or, you can help us build something better. And if I agree to this proposal, then tomorrow we begin working together to establish the new order. Zephyrian and human engineers will start joint projects. Our scientists will share their research. Our diplomats will work to bring other species into the framework. Jin Wu smiled genuinely for the first time. And I can finally stop reading military strategy books and go back to enjoying the sports section of my newspaper. 3 hours later, Emperor Vex Thule signed the Treaty of Galactic Cooperation in a ceremony broadcast throughout both empires. The document established the framework for peaceful expansion through diplomacy, economic development, and cultural exchange rather than military conquest. As Jin Wu prepared to return to Earth, he left behind a gift for the Emperor: a subscription to several Earth newspapers, so the former Emperor could stay informed about human thinking without needing to guess. The final scene showed Jin Wu settling into his transport ship with a new book about peaceful conflict resolution. While in the background, human and Zephyrian engineers began working together on projects that would benefit both species. Outside the ship's windows, the combined fleets moved toward unexplored regions of space, no longer as conquerors, but as explorers seeking new worlds to befriend rather than new enemies to defeat. Admiral Krisha, now serving as the first Zephyrian representative to the Galactic Council, stood beside human Captain Sarah Chen on the bridge of a joint exploration vessel. Both watched the stars ahead with anticipation rather than fear. "Do you think this peace will last?" Admiral Krisha asked. Captain Chen smiled. "As long as it remains more profitable than war." Behind them, crews from a dozen different worlds worked together, united by the simple idea that cooperation created more value than conquest. And somewhere in his cabin, Ambassador Jin Woo Park finally had time to catch up on the baseball season.